Hey Space Friend, today we're going to get our ish together by making a simple to-do list application. We'll get some practice with creating functions and taking user input. But more importantly, look at my cool James Webb Telescope mirror earrings. Ooh. Our first function is creating the display menu. You create a function using def, and then the name of the function and close parentheses with a colon. This function will print our options for what you can do with the application. The next function lets us add tasks. We have two parameters for the add task function, tasks and new tasks. This means when we call the function, we'll enter two arguments to fill in those parameters. Tasks.append is going to append the new task to a list called tasks that we'll create later. Then it will print that we've added the task. This syntax is a way of formatting strings. We start with an F before the string and enter the variable new tasks and curly braces. To view all the tasks in a list, we're creating a function called viewTasks. This has one parameter, tasks. If there's nothing in the task list, we'll print that information, otherwise the if statement will execute. First, we print the word tasks, and then we loop through the list to print each individual task. We then use a for loop combined with the enumerate function to iterate through the task list. The enumerate function is used to loop over an iterable, which is like a list, a tuple, or a string, while keeping track of the index or the position, and the value of each item in the iterable. So for index and task in the task list, starting at index 1, print the index number and the task. To remove a task from the list, we're creating a function called removeTask with parameters for task and task index. If the index is greater than or equal to the length of task list or the task index is 0, I'm saying the word task so many times and it's so hard, we're printing that it's an invalid task number. Otherwise, the else statement executes and we use tasks.pop to remove the index and print that we've removed it. Pop removes and returns an item at a specified index, with the last index being the default. So removeTask stores the list with the specified task popped off. Next, we're defining the main function. Main is frequently used to define the starting point of the program. It lets us import and run this program in another script. Within the main function is where we're creating our task list. The square brackets indicate that we're creating an empty list, and then we'll add to it using append when the add task function is called. While true initiates an infinite loop that will keep the program running until the user decides to exit, which is often done using a break statement. So while true, we call the display menu function. We create a variable called choice and take user input with the string enter your choice 1 through 4. First, the program checks the user input. If they selected 1, the first if statement executes. Elif will only execute if the if statement is not true. That's short for else if. So if the first one is true, do this, else if, do this, else if, do this, and so on until you get to the else statement at the bottom. That final else statement will execute if none of the if or elif statements are true. For choice 1, new task equals another user input for what task they want to add. Then add task is called to add the newly entered task to the formerly empty task list. For choice 2, we view the task by calling the viewTask function and putting the task list as the argument. For choice 3, we first show all the tasks and then take user input to select which item they want to remove -1. Subtracting 1 is so that the user doesn't have to worry about specifying an index number instead of the number in the task list. In most programming languages, indexes start at 0, so item 1 is at index 0, item 2 is at index 1, and so on. We don't want the user to have to think like that when they're removing the task, though. So the -1 compensates for human readable numbering versus zero-based indexing. Now if the user wants to remove task 3, they type 3 and the -1 in the program removes index 2, which is task 3. For choice 4, we exit the loop using the break statement. Break takes us out of this infinite loop that we're in. For anything else, we're going to print invalid choice. The syntax if name equals main in Python serves as a conditional check that ensures specific parts of the code are executed only when the script is run directly in the main program, not when it's imported as a module in another script. Name with the underscores around it is a special variable in Python that holds the name of the current module. When a Python script is executed, the Python interpreter sets the name variable for the script that is executed directly as main. For imported modules, name is set to the name of the module. So by using if name equals main, you're essentially checking if the current script is being run as the main program. If it is, the code inside the block will be executed. This allows you to include code that should only be run when the script is executed directly, such as setup code, initialization, or calling specific functions like main to start the program's execution. I'm going to add to my to-do list, find and remove the alien parasite on the ship, figure out what the aliens sending me hardware are going to want in return, befriend the ship's AI so it will stop locking me in the airlock, and send a letter to my parents letting them know I'm still alive and just as successful as I always hoped I would be. Maybe I'll leave off the unprofessional and the pirate part though.